Hello, and thank you for joining us for our master's class called Detox Your Beauty, What's in Your Skincare. Today's webinar is really to identify some of the harmful ingredients that we find in our skincare products today. So what's in your skincare? We really need to start by understanding label laws and knowing how to interpret the ingredient list, as this is really the only way to identify if something's either safe or unsafe. Let's take a look at drugs versus cosmetics. How does the law really define a cosmetic? The FDA says that cosmetics, by their intended use, are articles intended to be rubbed, poured, or sprinkled, or sprayed on, or introduced into, otherwise applied to the human body for cleansing, beautifying, promoting attractiveness, or altering the appearance. Among the products included within this scope are moisturizers, perfumes, lipsticks, nail polishes, eye and facial makeup preparations, cleansing shampoos, permanent waves, hair colors, and deodorants, as well as any other substance intended for use as a component of a cosmetic product. How are the laws and regulations different for cosmetics versus drugs? Well, under the FD&C Act, cosmetic products and ingredients, with the exception of color additives, do not require FDA approval before they go into market. Drugs, on the other hand, must generally either receive pre-market approval by the FDA through the New Drug Application, or known as NDAs. It's a process to conform to a monograph for a particular drug category as established by the FDA on over-the-counter drugs. Some of the example of the monographed over-the-counter preparations would be anything that contains salicylic acid, benzoyl peroxide, or hydroquinone. Here are 10 important facts about reading cosmetic labels. Cosmetics are the least regulated products under the FDA. The FFDCA does not require pre-market testing, review, or approval for any cosmetics. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration pursues enforcement action only after the cosmetic enters into the stream of commerce, or sometimes after it's already on the shelves of the retailers. The National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health found that over 800 of the chemicals available for use in cosmetics have been reported to the government as toxic substances. A U.S. General Accounting Office report notes that the FDA has committed no resources for assessing the safety problems of those chemicals, which have been found to cause genetic damage, biological mutations, and cancer. Because of minimal regulations, products plainly dangerous to your health can be and are being sold. The FDA officials have found that many cosmetic manufacturers lack adequate data on safety tests and have generally refused to disclose the results of these tests. The FDA estimates that only 3% of over 4,000 to 5,000 cosmetic distributors have filed reports with the government on injuries to consumers. In addition, it's estimated that less than 40% of the nation's 2,500 cosmetic manufacturers are even registered with the FDA. In 1990, there were some 38,000 cosmetic-related injuries that required medical attention in the U.S. That figure does not include many people using cosmetics and suffer from allergies, irritation, or photosensitization. The skin is extremely permeable. Cosmetic ingredients most certainly are absorbed through the skin. Some chemicals may penetrate the skin in significant amounts, especially when left on the skin for long periods of time, as in the case of skincare products. FDA policies and those of the Cosmetic, Toiletry, and Fragrance Association say that the U.S. Trade Association, which represents the multi-billion-dollar cosmetic industry, are mutually supportive. Yet the majority of the CTFA is to prevent new and unnecessary label warnings. Label warnings are even more critical in view of the escalating incidence of cancer that now strikes nearly 1 in 2 men and more than 1 in 3 women in their lifetimes. Still sharper increases are anticipated in coming decades. So really, what does the FDA do for cosmetic regulations? The FDA is responsible for the regulation of cosmetics and personal care products. What this means is quite unsure. The legislative framework for regulating these products, whether manufactured in the U.S. or imported, is based on the 1938 FD&C Act and its amendments. Keep in mind, 1938 was even before World War II. Nothing has been amended since 1938 when coming to the conclusion of whether cosmetics or personal care products are safe or unsafe. Nevertheless, the FDA has rarely exercised its explicit authority over the last 7 decades, no matter how dangerous the product and ingredients may seem. Clearly, the time to require the cosmetics and personal care products industry to phase out these carcinogenic and other toxic ingredients is well overdue. What about the term cosmeceuticals that we hear so much, or cosmeceuticals? The term cosmeceuticals is often used in advertising and may be very misleading to the consumer. According to the United States Food and Drug Administration, the Cosmetic Act does not recognize any such category as cosmeceuticals. A product can be a drug, a cosmetic, or a combination of both, but the term cosmeceutical has no meaning under the law of the FDA. I always say we have either cosmeceuticals or cosmeceuticals because, in my opinion, cosmeceuticals should represent a higher level, a higher quality, and more of a results-driven type of product. But not all products can be treated equally. In my opinion, there are 2 types of products. One is the therapeutic product. 2 would be a corrective product. What this really breaks down and means is that therapeutic products feel good, smell good, and are supposedly healthy for the skin. Corrective, on the other hand, means these are high-performance products that yield high percentages of the performing ingredients that should be deemed as safe and effective as well. What we put on our skin absolutely gets in our skin. A 1970 study indicated that the absorption of 9 different organic chemicals demonstrated the body's capacity to absorb up to 43% over a 5-day period. Now, this was done in 1970. Technology has improved so much that what we're trying to do now is drive these ingredients deeper into the tissue, and what we may be doing is driving more harmful ingredients into the skin. We use cosmetic products on a daily basis, applying small quantities of all types of synthetic chemicals to our bodies. It's been reported that over 60% of all chemicals applied in our daily skincare products can be absorbed. Many of these products are being absorbed through the skin when applying creams, lotions, deodorants, hair dyes, ingested through toothpaste, mouthwashes, and lipsticks, and also inhaled with aerosol sprays for hair care and spray deodorants. So should we really be concerned about quality and safe and unsafe chemicals? Absolutely, because what we're really unsure of is the long-term ramification of inundating our bodies with these toxic chemicals. Be aware of what I call esoteric marketing terms. There are several terms that have considerable market value when promoting cosmetic products to consumers, but they have very little to no meaning. Some companies actually spend the money and test their products for these claims. However, most don't, as it's not required by the FDA. Some of the more common terms that we see and what we should be aware of to not persuade our consumers to buy are some of the following: dermatologist tested, medically safe, hypoallergenic or sensitivity tested, fragrance-free, non-comedogenic. These are terms used to increase the value of a product, but there is no regulation on which these products should be tested for to make these claims here. There are many, many others also being used. These are typically found on the side panel of products, bulleted out just like you see here, when there's just no merit to these words. So how do we really look at ingredient decks? We need to understand that there are 2 types of names of ingredients. One is the God-given name of the ingredient. The other is what we call the inky name. In the U.S., FDA requires that all cosmetics include the list of ingredients using standardized inky names, or INCI names. However, despite the FDA regulation, this policy is not well enforced. When you comply with INCI, it really means that we're identifying our ingredients by their proper Latin names instead of trade names. For example, you see here, not just prunus armicae kernel oil instead of apricot kernel oil, or butyrospermum pargai instead of shea butter. You can see that even the very simple, safe ingredients may have fairly complex spelling or pronunciation, which can throw our consumers off. To make it easier for the consumer, we may also include the ingredient's common, more recognizable name in parentheses after the INCI trade name. In addition, ingredients are listed in the order of the highest to the lowest concentration, except ingredients with a concentration of 1% or below, or color ingredients which can be listed in any order at the end of the ingredient deck. So let's also take a look at what I call performing versus non-performing ingredients that you see on an ingredient deck. All performing ingredients, those that are actually in the formulas known to produce results, should be in larger percentages and listed towards the top of the ingredient deck. On the other hand, some of the incidental ingredients, or what I refer to as non-performing ingredients, these can include colorants and fragrances and preservatives or processing aids that are present for a specific function for the raw material, but are not intended to have a technical or functional effect in the finished goods. Should be and are typically present at the very insignificant bottom level of the ingredient deck. So therefore, if the intended use of a product is to mitigate fine lines and wrinkles, there should be ingredients that are found not just in the first 5 to 8, but primarily in the first 1 to 3 to prove that that product was really designed to show results. What's safe and what's not safe? Amongst new science and plenty of new information regarding the unhealthy side effects of some of the harmful cosmetic ingredients that we know of, enough to know what is healthy and what is not is the way of personal care product ingredients. We really have to decipher as professionals what's going to be best for our clients and continue to educate our clients on what's safe and what's not. Most of the products found over the counter are loaded with toxic ingredients. So I'm going to make a claim to start detoxing our beauty. And the goal to this is really to stick to very simple and less is best. As our clients are trying to navigate through the waters of thousands and thousands and thousands of ingredients in cosmetic technology today, how do we really steer them towards the safest, most simple regimen, yet a regimen that's going to yield results? Keep in mind what we put on our skin should be as clean as what we eat. And unfortunately, but for most people, it's not. If we could educate our clients on just that our skincare regimen should be as clean as what we're willing to put in our bodies as we eat, is really an important statement. Because even in the tiny amounts, many of the chemicals commonly found in our cosmetics can have a tremendous health or hormonal impact, as we are only beginning to understand the consequences of what this really means. Skincare ingredients may be doing you more harm than good. After doing everything you can to minimize the signs of aging, the last thing you want to do is discover that the skincare products you may be actually aging you, or even worse, making you sick. When risky chemicals are used in cosmetics, the stakes are very high. These are not just trace contaminants that are being measured in parts per million or even parts per billion in food or water. These are substantial amounts of components of the product, just as flour would be as an ingredient in bread. So we're looking at large quantities of these toxic types of ingredients that are layered on our bodies every day, day in and day out. Cosmetic ingredients do not remain on the surface of the skin. They are designed to penetrate, and they do. Scientists have found that many cosmetic ingredients in human tissue, including phthalates found in urine, preservatives called parabens in breast tumor tissues, and persistent fragrance components found in human fat. Do the concentrations at which they are typically found pose risks? For the most part, these studies have not been done. But a small but growing number of studies serve as scientific red flags. And I've listed a couple studies that have already been done. If you want to Google these, there is a SWAN study that was done in 2005 and again reiterated or modified in 2010. These are alarming studies based on what risks we look at with the accumulation of these toxic chemicals through our personal care items. Personal care products are manufactured with over 10,500 unique chemical ingredients, some of which known or are suspected carcinogens, toxic to the reproductive system, or known to disrupt the endocrine system. No pre-market safety testing is required for the industrial chemicals that go into personal care products or the chemical industry as a whole. According to the Office of Cosmetics and Colors at the FDA, a cosmetic manufacturer may use almost any raw material as a cosmetic ingredient and market the product without an approval by the FDA. The FDA does no systematic reviews of safety, instead authorizing the cosmetic industry to self-police ingredient safety through its Cosmetic Ingredient Review Panel. Over its 36 years, this industry panel has rejected only 11 ingredients as unsafe in cosmetics. This was finalized in circa 2012, and by contrast, nothing has been done since. So you can imagine over 10,500 known cosmetic ingredients, only 11 ingredients have been deemed unsafe, when we simply know that's not the case. Americans' frequent exposures to cosmetics and personal care products raise questions about the potential health risks from the myriad of unassessed ingredients in them. These ingredients migrate into the bodies of nearly every American somehow. For instance, in 2005, scientists from the University of Rochester, New York, reported that prenatal exposure to phthalates, these are chemicals found in personal care products and other consumer products, could cause the reproductive organs of male infants to develop abnormally. This is a huge statement. Studies have shown again and again that hormone systems of the wildlife are also thrown in disarray by chemicals found from personal care items that are rinsed down drains and into our rivers and streams. Most cosmetics and personal care products on the store shelves today contain 5 major categories of toxic ingredients. These are the following. Carcinogens, which are known cancer-causing or precursors to cancer. Hidden carcinogens, which we just don't know quite yet how drastic the results could be of those. And then we have endocrine or hormonally disruptive toxic ingredients. Penetration enhancers and allergens, all of which can create havoc in the human body. Our skin is highly permeable and again less than 1/10 of an inch thick. Skin is a porous membrane that's designed to absorb, and it's highly sensitive to toxic chemicals. What we put on our skin affects our health just as much, if not more than, what we put in our mouths. In 1997, there was a Senate hearing on the U.S. Food and Drug Administration reform bill that warned, cosmetic industry has borrowed a page from the playbook of the tobacco industry by putting profits ahead of public health. However, this is an understatement. At least tobacco products are labeled with explicit warnings on cancer risks, which relate only to late adolescents and adults. In striking contrast, there are no warnings whatsoever on cosmetics or personal care items. So does the lack of compliance or complaints give the FDA reason to not create necessary changes? I think there's something to be said here. Take a look at these stats. A U.S. Food and Drug Administration complaint database contains over just 5,000 adverse events between the years of 2004 and 2016. This is a 12-year span. A $400 billion industry with millions of products and multiple controversies, but we only have over 5,000 adverse events in the course of 12 years. This is very underreported. So we need to become aware of the catchphrases that can confuse our clients on the labels. Here are some of the things I want us to think about. There are 3 distinct categories of claims. none of which have any merit. The larger category is called Category A. In this category, it's absolutely meaningless. Unfortunately, there is not enough regulation about these types of claims. As of yet, we have no defining criteria for even being able to state them. So any brand could come up with the following. This issue is extremely confusing, and the consumer is being bombarded with tons of misleading and opposing information. On the FDA's website, as of recent, states the following. Does FDA have a definition for the term organic? No. FDA regulates cosmetics under the authority of the FD&C Act and the Fair Packaging and Labeling Act. The term organic is not defined in either of these laws or regulations that the FDA enforces under their authority. So these examples that you see below here are claims that don't need to be substantiated, that most any brand can put on the side of their packaging or box, and until further investigated, get away with it. 100% natural, organic, eco-friendly, all-natural, non-toxic, vegan, contains organic ingredients. These are just some examples of the many things we see in these Category A claims. Category B, kind of similar. Category B implies that the product is not harmful to the environment. Since the term earth-friendly has no legal definition and can be misinterpreted, as we see fit can be interpreted, becomes very meaningless. Unless there's some type of third-party recognizable entity that's backing up these claims, they're simply pointless. Any ingredient claims, such as how they are harvested, how they can affect the planet, need to be substantiated, but they're not. These examples, you've probably seen several of these as well. Environmentally safer, earth-friendly, wild-sourced, environmentally sound, green. All of these are not recognized by the FDA, and again, there aren't any specific studies that will indicate whether a company can make these claims or not. And then there's Category C. Category C pertains to how the product will affect you personally. Since everyone has different allergies and sensitivities, these claims, again, are pointless. If it's allergy tested, what are allergies tested for? Non-irritating, well, to who? One product can be non-irritating to one person and cause redness on the next. Dermatology tested, one of my favorites. What does this mean? For what? Sounds good on the label, but end up not providing much valuable information for the consumer. If you know you have sensitive skin, my recommendation is to try it. Do a patch test or check the ingredient listing for things that you know you're allergic to. But that still doesn't guarantee that it's not going to produce some known allergy result. Here's some of my favorites in this category. Hyperallergenic, what does that mean? Dermatologist tested, allergy tested, non-irritating, safe for you. These are blanket statements that absolutely could not mean for everyone. So again, what's safe and what isn't? The cosmetic industry has what we call the CIR, which is the Cosmetic Ingredient Review Board. This is a US-based panel that reviews and assesses cosmetic ingredients and publishes the findings in a peer-reviewed scientific literature. It's supported by the FDA and funded by the industry, but no regulatory clout. The fact that it's funded by the industry means that it's being funded by some of the giants within the industry and certainly are modifying the way that consumers are interpreting this information. So the toxic skincare ingredients hiding in your beauty products, there's so many of them, it's really hard to get into all of them, but I'm going to just focus on the top culprits here. It's what I call the chemical culprits. Parabens being the first and foremost. I could stand on my soapbox all day and talk about parabens. There's enough data to know that parabens are unsafe. So if cosmetic manufacturers are still producing product with parabens, shame on them. There's enough that we know to stay away from them. And there's enough alternatives out there in the industry where we can choose to not continue to create products with parabens. Formaldehyde, this is a very potent preservative known as a human carcinogen. Again, this is typically found in lots of hair straighteners and more hair producing or hair products. Believe it or not, are widely used in U.S. products still today. More Americans develop contact allergies to these types of ingredients. And then we have DEA. This is a coal tar derivative, a byproduct of coal processing. This is also known as a human carcinogen. According to the National Toxicology Program and the International Agency for Research on Cancer, these should absolutely be avoided. We hear a lot about diazolinoleuria. These are formaldehyde releasers, so they can be used in formulas to kill bacteria, but they have the same producing unsafe effects, I should say, in the body as DEA does. Sodium lauryl sulfates or lauryl sulfates or ALS, ammonium lauryl sulfates, we know these are the sudsing agents or detergents found in most cleansing agents, whether it's shampoos or facial washes. There is so much new data to support why we should run in the other direction if we see any of these on a label. Nanoparticles, these are really your zinc oxide, titanium dioxide nanoparticles. The nomenclature now states that we have to put in brackets if they're nanoparticles on an ingredient deck. The word nano has to be in brackets after these two ingredients, stating that these are now made with nanoparticles. Most companies have moved away from the use of nanoparticles and moving more towards a larger molecular particle because they do not penetrate the skin. So we know that nanoparticles could penetrate your lungs and even enter the bloodstream. So many other nanoparticles have received very little testing, yet they're readily penetrating the skin and contaminating the body. So cosmetic manufacturers, although are not required to disclose the presence of nanoparticles or it's being produced or policed, but the new nomenclature says that we have to put nano in brackets. No one yet that I know of has admitted to using nanoparticles, and yet it's not really being policed. So we really don't know how much nanoparticle manufacturing is being done yet. Synthetic fragrances, it may help to sell products from face cream to laundry detergent, but you know what's in it. Fragrances are in everything from shampoo to deodorants to lotions. The federal law does not require companies to list on any labels of the chemicals in their fragrance mixtures. Recent research from the EWG and the Campaign for Safe Cosmetics found on the average of 14 chemicals in 17 big name brand fragrance products, none of them listed on the label what the fragrance was. Even though we know fragrances contain hormone disruptors and are among the top 5 allergens in the world. Try to buy fragrance-free whenever possible, or to choose products that contain a natural ingredient that gives off somewhat of a fragrance. Oxybenzone, this is a sunscreen agent with an ultrafine light absorber. This is found in the bodies of nearly all Americans, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control. Epidemiology studies state that oxybenzone has been linked to irritation, sensitization, and allergies. A study of over 400 New York City women in the 3rd trimester of pregnancy associated higher maternal concentrations of this ingredient and showed decreased birth weights amongst their newborn baby girls. These studies on cells and lab animals indicate that this ingredient and its metabolites may disrupt the hormone system. Any PEGs or citrus or polyethylene compounds, these are conditioning and cleaning agents. They go by many different names. These synthetic chemicals are frequently contaminated with 1 or 4-dioxane, which is considered to be the strongest human carcinogen, which readily penetrates the skin. Cosmetic makers should easily remove the 1,4-dioxane from ingredients, but tests documenting its common presence in products show that they often don't. So if you're seeing PEGs or dioxanes in any ingredient deck, again, I would run in the other direction. Phthalates, we've talked about a couple of times today already. A growing number of studies indicate that this chemical family damages the male reproductive system. A pregnant woman should avoid nail polish containing phthalates. Everyone should avoid products with fragrance indicating that there's a chemical mixture containing phthalates. Triclosan, this is your antimicrobial pesticides in liquid soap or soap bars. We've seen it in our hand sanitizers, extremely toxic to the aquatic environment, often found as contaminants in people due to widespread use of these antimicrobial cleansing products. It's been proven to disrupt thyroid function and reproductive hormones. Even the AMA and the American Academy of Microbiology say that soap and water serves just as well to prevent the spread of infections and reduce bacteria on the skin, and that overuse of these types of ingredients of development of bacteria resistance. We're going to get into a little bit more meat of some of the key ingredients that now we're going to see mostly still in today's personal care items, especially in more of a medical grade or results-driven types of brands. We have to be very careful with vitamin A compounds. These are the retinol palmitates, retinol acetates, or retinols. Vitamin A is an essential nutrient, but not necessarily safe for all skin types. And so even though we see benefits by using these derivatives of retinol or retin A, we also see that there is some downside. Sun-exposed skin with these compounds increase skin sensitivity almost 3 to 4 times as much. Further, sunlight breaks down vitamin A to produce a very toxic free radical that can damage DNA and hasten skin lesions. And tumors have also been found to grow with huge amounts of these types of ingredients absorbed in the skin. Now, so the message here is that don't ever blend any retinol, retinoic acid, retinol derivatives like retinol palmitate, and using any acid-based ingredients at the same time. So we want to make sure it's not just about this one ingredient, but it's also how we use these products in addition to other products or with sunlight. So it's absolute no-no to be in any sunlight or UV exposure when using any of these types of vitamin A compounds. Hydroquinone, for a lot of you that have been around me know that this is another one of my big cosmetic culprit. This is a skin bleaching chemical that can cause a disease called onchronosis, which is a blue-black lesion, and in worst case becomes almost these caviar-sized bumps on the skin. It's also caused tumor development. Hydroquinone and 2% over-the-counter is a limited range that we can allow by prescription, though we're still seeing lots of scripts being written in 4, 6, 10, and 12% dosages. Hydroquinone has been banned in 30 different countries. It's still available here to manufacture with in the States, but we're slowly seeing some reform state by state where the actual states are banning it themselves. It is clearly a very dangerous ingredient. I would stay clear from this ingredient too. And here's the good news, is that we know there are so many safe alternatives to these synthetic harmful cosmetic chemistry ingredients. Animal-based ingredients, many consumers are asking manufacturers really tough questions about ethical sourcing of their ingredients. Vegetarians, vegans, and people concerned about animal welfare frequently seek to avoid ingredients derived from animals. However, a number of animal-based substances are still found in cosmetics and might not be clearly labeled as such. So if you're concerned about avoiding animal products, the best bet is to choose brands claiming to be vegetarian or vegan or labeled with the PETA leaping bunny. But this does not necessarily give you any guarantees. Don't be surprised by those brands that are also claiming to be vegetarian or vegan, because again, there aren't any certain circumstances in which those need to be tested for to be able to make those claims now. Just stay away from anything known to be animal-based and you should be fine. Here's an example of what not to buy. The reason why I love this is because it's one of our most beloved, most hated, I should say, products on the market. Yes, it's the St. Ives scrub, the apricot scrub. Take a look at this ingredient deck and really digest really what we're putting on the skin here. All the stearates that you see above are the cetyl alcohols. These are all wax-based ingredients. We have a kernel meal, which we don't know if it's a nanoparticle. We have sodium lauryl sulfate, which is one of the top 3 culprits of carcinogens. We have glicerol stearate, which is another wax. We have another shell powder. We don't know if it's a nano. We have dimethicone. We have acetate, which is a polymer. We have polysorbate 60, which has also been deemed as dangerous. We have titanium dioxide. We don't know if it's a nanoparticle. And then look at all the lovely different colorants in synthetic fragrances. We have 1, 2, 3 different types of preservatives in this. This, by all stretch, is a very dangerous product. When you think about men and women using this product on a weekly basis, compounding the infusion of these types of ingredients into our bodies, as often as twice a week or more, it can simply be toxic. Here's a list of the top things on the other side to look for in a healthy skincare regimen. Pure butters such as shea, almond, coconut, mango butters, pure oils like avocado, jojoba, azulene, and olives, essential oils, but please note that not everything natural is good for you, and not everything synthetic is bad. Essential oils are a better choice than fragrance, however, but still can be caustic when used too often or in high amounts, so be careful with essential oils. Use what you know. Choose ingredients that you already are familiar with or that you feel comfortable with. For example, pineapple, oatmeal, honey, salt, things that you are certain that are healthy for your skin and for your body. Stick to natural plant extracts, such as aloe, red tea, chamomile, for example. Colorants from minerals, plants, fruit, or root vegetables in place of synthetic dyes. Non-foaming facial cleansers, non-detergent body washes, not using any of the ammonium lauryl sulfates or any of the sulfates that we know of in technology. Synthetic fragrance-free products. Look for something that's fragranted with something, hopefully, that has an intended use or purpose within the formula itself. So these are some things I want you to really think about and to teach your clients on what to look for when they're interpreting the massive amount of ingredients that are available on these ingredient decks today. One more thing to think about is as your clients are looking at the ingredient decks of product, particularly across all market segments, meaning QVC, CVS Market, Walmart, through then the spa industry and up through doctors' offices and online e-commerce stores. It doesn't really matter. What we want our clients to look at is potentially the first 3 to 5 or the first 5 to 8 ingredients on that ingredient deck. That speaks volumes whether that particular product is safe or unsafe, or if it's going to be performing or results driven or not. What can we do as professionals when it feels like we don't have any regulatory support, because we really don't? Be knowledgeable. Make sure you understand importance of ingredient knowledge. And then educate your clients on the unsafe ingredients and what to look for on an ingredient list. Provide healthy alternatives and recommendations for solutions to their skincare needs. Explain the price difference and advantage to pro-level or healthier alternatives. It's costly for companies like ours to go through the regulatory testing to make sure it's safe, or to make sure that it's results driven, or to use performing ingredients in high concentrations so that we make sure that we're yielding the results that we claim. These are all things that really need to be educated and taught to our clients. So we need to be better and we need to be more knowledgeable than the consumer so that we can become their go-to skincare expert and take it out of the hands of the big box retailers or the big box brands that are over the counter and selling harmful products. There's also a recommended resource that I would advise you to pick up. It's the Ruth Winter Consumer's Dictionary of Cosmetic Ingredients. This is my go-to. This is the 7th edition, but there are several more since. You can find this on Amazon.com. It's around $10. I would highly recommend it. This is just complete information about the harmful and desirable ingredients found in our products today. It's a go-to if your client's having specific concerns about harmful cosmetic ingredients as well. Thank you for joining us today. I hope this is a little bit more enlightening. My goal was to teach you the downside or the dark side of our industry so that we can, when they go down, we go up, and we can teach our clients on how to choose healthier versions for their skincare regimens. Thanks again.